This episode of Golf Smarter Mulligans is brought to you by dynamicgolfers.com. So I've started month number 3 of my morning Dynamic Golfers workout and was quite impressed to find out that even though I've been doing yoga on and off for decades, this month includes new positions that I've never even heard of or done before. But what really impressed me was that these are stretches that I can definitely see the long-term benefit as a golfer. And can we talk about the benefits? Last week I reported to you that I've stopped using the single-length irons and have returned to the irons that I was originally fit for a couple of years ago. Not only am I hitting the ball farther, but my consistency has also improved. Last week I shot my 3rd lowest score ever, a 75 on a par 71 Peacock Gap. And yes, my lowest score has an asterisk because it was during COVID and the cups were sticking out of the ground and all I had to do was brush by the cup. And so I shot a 1 over for the day, but I don't shoot that area very often. But there were a couple of holes that I need to explain. I want to explain to you. How about a par 5 that sometimes I can reach in 2 with a 3-wood? This time I nailed the middle of the green on my second shot with a 5-iron. And that led to my 3rd birdie on the front 9, including 1 out of a bunker. So the front 9 included 3 bogeys, 3 pars, 3 birdies, even par after 9. Then I had pars on 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, and 16, but a DeChambeau blow up on 17. Oh, I know it's mean to call it a DeChambeau blow up, but when he was asked about it, he said, hey, that's golf. So I'll take the lead on that. And a bogey on 18 that included a lost ball in the water, then a bunker shot that put the ball 8 inches from the cup for a bogey. Well, why am I telling you this? Well, there's a couple reasons. One, there's not many people I share this stuff with, especially at home, but I get to talk to you. And 2, besides the right clubs and a better swing, I was feeling loose, comfortable, pain-free, and confident. Which brings us to the point of this story. dynamicgolfers.com. Dynamic Golfers has taken the most effective positions of yoga and developed a long-term daily program specifically designed to help golfers become more flexible, fluid, and comfortable with every swing. I encourage you to check them out for yourself and love the feedback I've been getting from you on those who've been using it. Follow their daily video routines and track your progress because you will start seeing results within 4 weeks. Each video is between 15 and 20 minutes, so it's not a huge amount of your time, but it's really valuable time. For only $9.99 a month, $9.99 a month, you can join golfers worldwide that make Dynamic Golfers part of their daily routine as well. Go there now to get a 7-day free trial and 15% off your membership when you check out using the coupon code GolfSmarter. So please check them out today and let me know what you think. But don't forget, take advantage of their discount offer. Use the checkout code GolfSmarter when you sign up at dynamicgolfers.com.
Welcome to Golf Smarter Mulligans, your second chance to gain insight and advice from the best instructors featured on the Golf Smarter podcast. Great golf instruction never gets old. Our interview library features hundreds of hours of game improvement conversations like this that are no longer available in any podcast app.
If you prepare yourself properly for a championship, you go in there with, at the most, 3 swing thoughts. That's it. I usually keep it down to 1 because by the time I'm at the World Championship, I've already got everything done. I mean, I know what I'm working on and I know where my tendencies are, and I've usually got 1 little swing thought I tell myself. And I'll tell you what, 22 years I've been competing. Every year I've got 1 tip that always ends up coming down to the wire as being my go-to tip, and that is keep your head behind the ball at impact. Don't slide. Don't let that left ear get past the golf ball for a right-hander. That's been my number 1 tip. And my number 2 tip, which is right behind it, is to stay still. And what I mean by that is not to move at all laterally.
With another interview from the archives of Golf Smarter, here's your host, Fred Green.
It's time to bring out the beast in your game, and we've got just the guy to help. Sean Pfister, a.k.a. The Beast, has won the World Long Drive Championship 3 times and has set more records than any other long drive competitor. Even though he'd love to talk about his exploits with the driver, of course, my interest is in getting advice on how we can improve our driving distance and accuracy. Welcome to the Golf Smarter podcast, Sean.
How are you doing, Fred?
I'm doing fine. Can I call you Sean or Beast?
Either one. All my friends call me Beast. You can call me Beast if you want.
What does your family call you?
Well, Dad and Honey.
You got siblings, though, right? You got a lot of siblings. I was reading.
Well, I got 3. Yeah, I've got 3 kids, and of course, I'm one of 7.
Yeah.
In my family, so yeah, they that's the old Bill Cosby thing where he thought his name was Jesus Christ for the first 6 years of his life. 'Cause every time he turned around, his dad was going, Jesus Christ.
I'll go with Sean for now.
That sounds good.
Until we get face to face, I think I have trouble calling you Beast.
Well,
where did you get that name?
I guess it takes some getting used to. No, I got that nickname from playing softball. I was a buyer for Dillard's department stores here in Little Rock. They're headquartered here, and I played on the corporate softball team with one of the founders' sons, Mike Dillard, and he was our third baseman. And I hit a lot of home runs and took out some of the lights in the poles and car windshields and stuff. And he just started calling me Sean the Beast, and it just kind of stuck. And so around the office, everybody was calling me Beast. And when I went to the World Championship the first time when I won, I had the Beast embroidered on the side of my cap, and it just kind of stuck.
Good.
And it was a good way for me to, create a brand, and it helped me with that. And, there are other guys in the sport that have tried nicknames, but I've always had mine since I first, got in the sport, and then I've won some championships and had a lot of exposure, so that has lended itself well to the nickname, and it's helped me.
So, well, now let's talk. You've mentioned the long drive championships. You've competed in numerous long drive championships.
21 to be exact.
Wow. That's very impressive. And you've won 3 times.
I've won 3 world championships. I won the international championship in Canada, which was the same field. It just wasn't promoted as widely as the Long Drivers of America produced world championship. But I've had a good career. I mean, they put me in the Hall of Fame, and I've had thank you, and I've had 10 top 10 finishes. I've set 11 championship records at the World Championship, and so I'm pretty pleased with that. Good
for you. That's awesome. Congratulations. But are you a golfer or are you a range rat?
You know what? I've done both. I mean, I've always been a range rat. I've hit more golf balls, more drivers than anyone alive. I feel very comfortable in saying that because I'm known in the sport as a marathon hitter, and I used to hit 8 to 10 hours a day. And one day I hit 13 hours. Just took a break for a sandwich, but
and you're and you're talking about hitting your driver for 13 hours.
Yeah, full bore, and I think I hit 2,000 drives that day. And but it's funny. I was one day one of my doctors. I've got a team of doctor buddies that keep me on the tee, but this guy asked me. He says, "I wonder how many times you have swung a driver full speed in your career." And I started tinkering with the numbers, and I talked to my wife, and I came up with very, very conservative numbers as to how many drives I've hit. And she agreed with me that I've been averaging 330 days a year of hitting, and basically a minimum of 4 hours a day, which I can hit 450 balls in 4 hours easily. And so that and at 140 miles an hour, which is conservative for me, and my career average is about 360. And
distance is 360?
360 yards is my career average. Wow. Now, I've hit a lot of, I've probably had 500 competitive drives over 400 yards in my 22 years in long driving. But, we figured it out that 450 drives a day, 330 days a year is 687,000 miles that I've driven a golf ball. And the moon is 238,000 miles away. So I've hit it to the moon and back to the moon and on my way back.
And you don't get any points. You don't get any mileage points for that at your credit card or your airlines, right?
No. It's just the cool factor is there though, and but it's we also figured out that it's almost 26 times around the earth. So I'm truly a world champion.
Yeah. Absolutely. That's really impressive. But if you're averaging 4 hours a day of doing this, and one day you go for 13 hours, what are you accomplishing in that amount of time? I mean, what are you getting longer each time? Are you getting tired? What do you get out of working long and hard like that with one club? Well,
there's a lot of things you get out of it. And, number one, when you're a competitive athlete and, you always want to, there's something that comes with hard work, and it's self-esteem, and it's feeling that you've earned it. And anytime I've been an athlete all my life. I was a pole vaulter and a decathlete at the University of Florida, and my whole life was pole vaulting. And then when I got out of college, I'd broken my back trying to make the Olympic trials in 1986. I was going to try to go to the 88 Olympics in the decathlon, and I missed the pit and broke my back, and my pole vaulting career was over, period. And so the next year, after my back healed, I started playing golf just for the heck of it. I was about 23 or 24 years old and drove a par 4 the first day I ever played golf. And the people that were playing with me were like, "You don't understand how far that is." Of course, I shot 1,000,000. And but when I came in, nobody asked me what I shot. All they said was, "You should have seen how far he hit it on this hole."
Right.
And of course, I noticed that, being the big ham that I am, and I started just swinging as hard as I could every time I played. And if I'd catch one, it was just absolutely gone. And so I kind of started out playing golf by hitting it, 350 to 400 yards, and got lucky in a couple of contests and went to the World Championship. And 6 years later, I won my first world title. And then, you asked me what kind of golfer I am. Well, it didn't take me long to figure out that once I did exhibitions, that after you hit 8 or 10, 350, 400-yard shots, you better have something else to entertain people with. And you can't just go out and play a round of golf with a sponsor and shoot, 98. And so I started working on my game, and I guess about 2 years into it, I got my handicap down to a 4.
Wow.
And then over the years, I've always fluctuated from 0 to a 4, and I've had as good as a +3 a couple of years ago. But my career has gone at different levels. I mean, it's evolved because once I got my game to where it was respectable, I didn't have to really work on it as hard, and I went after long drive titles. And I never really thought about playing PGA Tour golf, because every time I thought about it, I'd shoot 83 or 84. So that's not my bag, and I know where my gift is, and it's hitting the big ball and going out and having fun and entertaining a crowd, and that's my favorite thing to do is put on a clinic in front of a corporate group or a celebrity event and having some fun with people and giving them some tips on how they can hit the ball further.
Oh, good, because we're going to get there. knowing how conservative golf is overall, I'm sure that they'll never follow the lead of the American League and have a designated driver. So you can go on the PGA Tour and you could step up and you can drive for somebody else, and then they do the rest. I don't think that's going to happen.
Well, I'm definitely available for scrambles at the right price.
There you go. That's perfect.
Yeah.
So let's spend a couple minutes and get some tips from you, from the tips. Let's talk about, there's two different elements involved here. There's long, and then there's straight when it comes to driving the ball.
Well, in the World Championship, if you hit it, 2 degrees offline, it's out of bounds.
Wow.
I mean,
that's nothing.
It's not a vector where it's fans out. It's a dead straight. It's like hitting to a football field. And if you hit one 2 degrees offline at 340, if you hit that same degree of miss and it's 350, it's out of bounds. So the longer you are, the straighter you have to be. And, it doesn't pay a dime when you hit it out of bounds. You have to hit it in bounds, and it has to stay in bounds. So, people say, well, you got a 50-yard fairway. Well, you look at 50-yard, 2 flags apart, 50 yards apart at 400 yards, and you tell me you can hit that thing every time. It's like hitting it through a doorway, 400 yards away. It's pretty narrow. But, you have to be accurate and long, and that's what, I've always been one of the more accurate long drivers on the long drive tour, and I've always prided myself in that because I practice exactly the way I compete every day. I call it rehearsal. I don't necessarily call it practice. I rehearse the scenarios that I might face in competition.
Interesting. And I got to imagine that this is what confuses me. You said you broke your back, and then you started playing golf. Then you go out and hit driver at full speed for 13 hours. How are you able to not have back issues now?
Well, I do have back issues. I do have back issues, but when I hurt my back pole vaulting, it was an impact fracture, and I actually broke. Twice I broke bones in my back, and once was a stress fracture from my back being overarched in a seat, when I'm taking off in the pole vault, and my back got too far underneath my hand, and I put pressure on that L4 disc, and it popped a stress fracture in there, and I recuperated from that. And then the other time was I fell and missed the pit, and I had an impact fracture. Now, these are all front-to-back injuries. The golf swing is rotational, and the only time I have problems with my lower back is if I start sliding a little bit or any weight shift in my swing. If I maintain a fixed axis and I rotate around it, I don't have near the back problems. And I can usually tell when I start missing the ball if my back is bothering me a little bit, it's because I'm getting off center a little bit.
Interesting. And is that also contribute to slicing the ball? Or if you have an issue, are you slicing or pulling the ball?
I've always been a natural pusher, slicer of the ball.
Mm-hmm.
I'm from a baseball family. I've got 5 professional baseball players in my direct line with my grandfather, my dad, and my brother. And, we've all there. Everybody's been good hitters and hard throwers. And, so, yeah, it's always been there.
Mm. And so how are you able, do you work with other golfers and trying to help them get it, keep it straight, eliminate the slice, eliminate the pull?
Well, I'll tell you what I did. I started out in 1994, and I set a goal I finished 4th in the championship that year, or 5th. And I decided that, I had the length. So my next goal was I want to win this thing. And so I need to learn everything I can about how to hit it far and straight. so I went through 7 years worth of Golf Digest magazines that I had collected, and I always liked the Golf Digest magazine, and I mean, even before I was playing golf, because I just liked it, and I always collected it. But anyway, I went through 7 years worth, and I had 2 large notebooks, and I pulled out each magazine issue at a time, and I combed through every one of them, and when I'd find an article about how to hit it far by a teacher or a writer, I would go through the article and I'd write down whatever tips that they were giving that would work. Then I'd throw the magazine away and I'd bring the next one down, and it took me 2 weeks. When I was done, I had reviewed 397 articles on how to hit it far. And I also mixed in some other golf magazines as well. I mean, the top ones that were out there: Golf Tips, Golf Magazine, and Golf Illustrated, and all these magazines. But anyway, I had 397 articles. I went back through after that and took out all the duplications because a lot of people say the same things,
and a lot of people probably contradict each other too.
Well, that was my next point.
Oh, I'm sorry.
After I had the duplications, I trimmed my list 70%. And so then I went back through and I found that one guy would say you need a wide stance for a strong base to keep you from laterally moving. And then another guy would say, well, you need to have a narrow stance because it allows you to rotate further. And then another guy would say you need a delayed wrist cock. And then some would say you need to load the hands right off the bat. Some would say you need tight grip pressure, and some would say, no, you need light grip pressure, and all these things. And so I had all these duplications. So what I did was I went out to the range and started on my project to find out which tips actually worked. And I had a little launch monitor called a distance caddy. And I think that's a Velocity now, but it tells you ball speed, and it does a little calculation and spits out a carry distance. And it's very accurate as far as testing from one thing to the next. So I went through and I tried a wide stance and hit about maybe 50 balls with it, and I was recording those numbers. And then I averaged them out. Then I went and had lunch, came back, warmed up the same way, and I did 50 swings with a narrow stance. And I was, 6 yards further on average with a wider stance. I did the same thing with grip pressure. I did the same thing with early cock, late wrist cock. All these little tips that were contradictions. And I would get real excited because I'd figure, well, I just found 6 more yards. Then I found 7 more yards. I found 5 more yards. And before you know it, I was hitting it 25 yards further. And that year I won the world championship. And I basically came down to about 16 tips. And some of them really worked together with some of the others. So I whittled it down to 10 tried and true, factual, worked out ways to maximize how far you hit the golf ball. And I had it all in this little booklet that I kept in my golf bag. Now I kept every one of these tips in a little booklet, in a little leather bound thing, and I had them all laminated and shrunk down, and they weren't much bigger than a business card. And I had 27 tips for the takeaway backswing. I had 23 for the downswing. Had the address position. I had about 18 things, and then I had one that strictly said slice cures, and I had about 23 things there. So I had everything at my fingertips I needed when I went to practice. So I didn't have to hit balls for 10 hours anymore to try to keep finding, and searching. All I had to do was figure out what I was doing wrong and go through this list of things, and I would find the answer just by reading through it. Oh, yeah, I need to do that. Like maybe rolling my wrist at the takeaway, opening the face up. And that was one that always got me, because then I'd go ahead and take it straight back, keep the face on line with the target, and that always helped me. And So I showed this to a Golf Digest writer. They were writing a big article, a feature article on me called My Shot, and the guy Yoakum did it. And in March of '05, they printed an 8-page feature on me, the largest My Shot feature they'd ever done. And I showed him my little leather, I call it my Bible, and he said, Sean, you got a book here. He said, this stuff is fresh. I said, I've never read anything like it. Well, there you go. You know, a year later, I had a best-selling book called The Long Drive Bible, and it's doing very well.
Oh, congratulations. What do you prefer, wide stance or a narrow stance?
Wide stance, definitely.
Definitely.
Yeah, everybody should think about, we've all seen a backhoe, the tractor backhoe out digging a ditch. The first thing they do when they turn the key on is they lower those little arms down, the feet down, and then they lift it up. What they've done is they've widened their stance, and they have a much better balance. And another thing is it lowers your center of gravity a little bit, and it allows you to stay flatter through impact and hit the ball instead of being real tall and narrow, because you'll have to come down and descend on the ball. So if you stay low, I don't mean to say stay low. I mean to get in a squatted position, bend your knees a little bit in an athletic position, get your feet out wide, and you could come through that ball and put a lot more energy towards the target, and your spin will be a lot better too.
Awesome. And what about your grip?
Grip pressure should be super light. You think you're going to throw it, and you think it's going to fly out of your hands, but it's not going to do that, because, you know, at impact, you're going to hold on to it. And I found 5 more miles an hour when I grip the club super light. And it also, when you do that, it allows your hands to return to square. Because if you grip the club too tight, you take it up the top and you hang on to it, you're going to drive the back of your left, the pad on your left hand, on the outside of your left hand, is going to go through first, and you're not going to close that face, and you're going to hit a fade. The face will be open at impact. So what you have to do is you lighten your hands up, and they'll return for you, and they'll release through the ball. Too much grip pressure, you cannot have a good release. There's no way.
Oh, my God. Hey, you know, your name came up in a conversation with Eben Dennis on an episode a few weeks back, and he's all about the hands, right?
Well, I've actually worked with Eben years ago, and, he's got some very good concepts on how to use your hands and swing through impact and swing your hands at the target, because a lot of people come up and out of the swing, and what he teaches is staying over the ball and extending your club toward the target, which has helped your swing plane, and he knows what he's talking about.
Awesome. Yeah, he was great. Now, do you advocate the difference between swing hard or swing fast? Is there a difference for you?
Well, you know what? I've early on I was a swing hard guy, and it really went along with my nickname, because I used to be just a slasher. I mean, I used to go at it with everything I had, and somebody asked me one time, what do you think about when you're going into the ball, hitting it that hard? And I said, well, I want to split the ball in half. I want that ball to just split in half, and then, you know, I want the shaft to snap. I want the face to cave in and crush. I want to damage this thing. And that's how I went at the ball. And I've told people that I used to swing so hard that my eyelids would overlap. I mean, I would just be going at it, everything I had, and I chipped a couple of teeth gritting at it, and you know that. But when I caught it, no one could touch me. And then I started wising up, and you know, I wasn't this young, you know, quarter horse anymore. I'm getting older, and I just started becoming more efficient, and I became more of a student of the swing, and that's when my career took off, because these long drive contests are full of guys that can hit it 400 yards. But the difference is when you're in a long drive world championship, you have to last through 10 rounds of elimination. And those guys, they may have a big ball, but they're not going to have that big ball consistently. And that's why, these big apes that go out there and swing for the fences, they don't last long. And you see the guys in the final rounds, and they've got pretty darn good golf swings. And so that's when I started working on my golf swing and becoming more efficient. And it doesn't look like I'm swinging near as hard as I used to. So I'm more of a swinger now. And I was a hitter back then, but I could get away with it because I was stronger than most of the guys and just naturally gifted, I guess. I don't know.
Hey, you talked about having that card with all these different notes on it in your back pocket while you were practicing. But once you're in competition, I got to believe that you're trying to keep your mind as clear as possible, or do you have these 1,000 thoughts going through with every swing?
No, yeah, you're right. You're exactly right. I mean, that's for practice. That's not for use in competition. If you prepare yourself properly for a championship, you go in there with, at the most, 3 swing thoughts. That's it. I mean, I usually keep it down to 1 because by the time I'm at the World Championship, I've already got everything done. I mean, I know what I'm working on and I know where my tendencies are. And I've usually got one little swing thought I tell myself, and I'll tell you what, 22 years I've been competing, every year I've got one tip that always ends up coming down to the wire as being my go-to tip, and that is keep your head behind the ball at impact. Don't slide. Don't let that left ear get past the golf ball for a right-hander. That's been my number 1 tip. And my number 2 tip, which is right behind it, is to stay still. And what I mean by that is not to move at all laterally. Stay perfectly stationary and rotate and fire and be explosive around a fixed center point, because that club head will always return to the same spot if you don't move off of it.
I actually found on YouTube one of the competitions. It doesn't give the date of when it was, and the announcers from ESPN are talking, and they talk about how still your head is during your swing, and they also commented.
I've worked on.
Yeah, and they also commented the speed was in your hands, not in your wrists.
Yeah, well, I always try to stay perfectly still and absolutely. Fire my hands through the impact as fast as I can. And, that takes a real patient backswing and staying still and getting up to the top and being nice and fluid and supple and then slinging those hands into the ball. And, that has worked very well for me.
Now, a couple of things that you have that none of us will ever get, and that is your discipline in your body, the time for that discipline. But we can share a couple things, and I would get nasty letters if I didn't ask these 2 things. Do you have a ball that you prefer to use?
Well, when I play golf and when I do exhibitions, I've found this ball by Dixon Golf. It's called the Earth Ball.
Yeah, the Dixon Earth. Sure. I love that ball.
Well, it's an eco-friendly ball, too, so you're doing your part to minimize your carbon footprint.
There you go.
But, and I like that, and it's a good ball. It's been tested right up there with the Pro V1, and they've got 3 balls getting ready to come out with they got the Earth Ball, the Wind, and the Fire, and I really like the Wind Ball because, I like to absolutely kill it, and so I like the distance. But you know what? It checks up on the greens too, and that's what blew my mind. And I just played a couple of weeks ago with the guys at Dixon, and they brought those out because they're coming out, I believe, in January.
Probably at the show. Yeah, I have not seen that. All I know is the Dixon Earth Ball.
Hey, I couldn't believe how good that ball was. I mean, I was hitting at probably 390. I hit a little better than that, and I hadn't warmed up a lot, and couple of par 5s, I was 130 out or something, 140. I hit a sandwich in there, and it just spun right back, and I was like, man, this is a good ball. So I'm very happy with that ball. It's a great ball.
Oh, well, great. And again, if any Golf Smarter listener joins up to be a Golf Smarter member, we have the Dixon Earth ball for you. You can take that home with you. And we have them for sale on our website. That's great. At the Golfer Smart, you can get a great discount on those Dixon Earth balls. Okay, but what about your driver? What are you using?
Well, I started my own golf company this year.
Tell me more.
Mr. Golf Company, yeah, and I'm not unlike a lot of people out there that the economy has just ripped a hole in us, and I lost my sponsors. I didn't lose them; they just didn't renew because they got bought out, and with the economy the way it is, everybody in golf has taken a hit, and I'm no different. So I had to kind of go back to the drawing board and figure out what I was going to do, and I've been designing my drivers with Dunlop, who I was with for 12 years, and I had had a pretty good career, winning two of my world championships with the heads that I was heavily involved in designing. And my wife and I were talking about it. She says, well, Sean, you know so much about these driver heads. Why don't you start your own company and design drivers? And I couldn't figure out why I shouldn't do it. And I've never been one to, scoff at an opportunity. So I checked into it, and I got some samples in and made some tooling changes and made the head the way I liked it. And I've been competing with it some, and it's a great head. And what I did was, when I was with Dunlop, no one was allowed to have the technology that I had because I was designing them. And I said, nobody gets these but me, because I'm not doing all this legwork and having some other guy come out and beat me with it. And so no one was available. That wasn't available to the general golfer. So what I've done is, now that I'm kind of seeing the sunset on my career, because I'm 47 now, I just can't keep up with these 22-year-olds, and I'm not far back, believe me, but I'm not where I once was. But I decided to make these drivers in a 9.5 and 10.5 degree loft for the average golfer, and make them the same heads that I'm hitting, but just raise the loft on them and change the center of gravity just a little bit to adjust for the extra loft. And I'll tell you what, the people who've been hitting them, they absolutely love them, and they're picking up yards. And my favorite thing about it is there's no gimmicks. There's no marketing, smoke and mirrors. It's a good driver, and everybody's hitting it 10, 12, 15, some people 20 yards further. And I've sold out. My first batch is sold out.
Oh, congratulations. That's fabulous.
Thanks.
Well, Sean, the book is called The Long Drive Bible, forward by John Daly. You also have Charles Barkley does a testimonial on the back here. Really entertaining book. I enjoyed reading it. Thank you for sending it, and thank you for signing it. And fistergolf.com is your website, FISTERGOLF, fistergolf.com. Check out the Punisher. That's your driver. And this was really interesting. I found this fascinating because you're a golfer, but there's a whole different element to your golf world than the rest of us, and it's very cool.
Well, I've always tried to stand out a little bit. I haven't had. I tried. I haven't had to try much, but I've enjoyed a very long career at doing something that I absolutely love to do, and I love hitting a ball for people and just seeing their jaws drop, and something about being able to do something that the average golfer can't do, and most people just say, I had no idea that a golf ball could be hit that hard. And it's a lot of fun. And when I'm out there on doing an exhibition and stand on a par 5, I usually get about 5 or sometimes 10 minutes with a group, and I'll usually watch them hit and give them some tips, and it usually works out really well. I have a lot of fun with it, and I really enjoy doing what I do.
Yeah, that's what it's all about, man. That's what it's all about. Thanks so much for coming on the show. And if people have questions for you, could they write them to me and I can forward them to you?
Sure.
Willing to give some advice?
Sure.
Great.
They may not like all of it, I might, you know what? I may tell them they need to go to the gym a little bit. You know, it won't hurt anybody. I had a guy one time, he said, he was at my club, and he said, man, how can you teach me to hit it 400 yards? And he was a pretty heavy-set guy, and I looked at him, and I said, well, first thing you need to do is lose some weight. And everybody in the room just kind of looked at me like, did he just say that? So, you know, sometimes being direct will get you in trouble, but it's true.
Sean, thanks a lot, man. I really enjoyed it.
My pleasure.